Good morning, friends. This is Edu Shastra, and I hope all of you have taken the flash test. So, in the flash test, we see that all the questions were related to critical reasoning. Critical reasoning may have different types of questions. It may have questions related to the conclusion of the argument, or strengthening the argument, or weakening the argument, and likewise. The basic way to solve the questions related to critical reasoning is to read the argument properly. After reading the argument, we should summarize the whole crux of the argument in our mind. After that, we should start with the choices. We should keep eliminating the choices which are irrelevant and then reach to the final answer. Now let's see how do we do it. So we will start with our question number 1. Anger in response to insults is unreasonable, for insults are merely assertions that someone has undesirable characteristics. It says that if a party insults the other person, then anger is not the right response. Why? Because insults are basically just a thinking that a person has undesirable characteristics. If such an assertion is false, the insulted party ought to pity the ignorance prompting the insult. It further says that if such thinking that the other person has undesirable characteristics is false, in that case, the insulted party, the party who has been insulted, should not be angry but should pity the other party. Why? Because the other party was ignorant of the fact. And if it is true, the insulted party should be grateful for such useful information. And if this information is true, then the party who has been insulted should be grateful for the information. Now, the overall crux of the argument is that if a person insults the other person, then anger is not the right response. Rather, the insulted party should have pity on the other party. So now let's check what is the question? Which one of the following enables the argument's conclusion to be properly drawn? So we have to find the option which helps in the argument's conclusion. Now let's check the options. Option A says actions prompted by ignorance do not warrant hostile reactions. What does it mean? It says that any action that has been done because of ignorance do not guarantee any hostile reaction. This is completely irrelevant from the argument point of view, so option A is eliminated. Coming to option B, anger is an unreasonable response to useful information. It says anger is unreasonable response, which is what we discussed in the argument earlier. So this option can be our answer. We'll keep it on hold. Coming to option number C, anger is an unreasonable response to any action that should prompt pity or gratitude. It says that anger is unreasonable response to the action, and the action requires pity or gratitude. Now we see option C says the things exactly discussed in option B, but it is further adding pity or gratitude to the action. So C can also be our answer, which we discussed in the argument that anger is unreasonable response and the insulted party should have pity. Now let's check option D. Gratitude and pity are reasonable responses to some forms of hostile or insensitive behavior. It says that these responses are reasonable to some form of hostile or insensitive. We never discussed about hostile or insensitive behavior, so option D is irrelevant and is eliminated. Option E, pity is the only reasonable reaction to people with undesirable characteristics. It says PT is the only reasonable reaction. We never discussed that PT is the only reasonable reaction, so option E is also eliminated. Now we are left with option B and option C, and clearly when we compare option B and option C is more relevant answer because it talks about that the action requires PT. So option B is also eliminated. Option C is our answer. Coming to question number 2, consumer says, I would like to have the features contained in the latest upgrade to your computer software package, but I am leery of installing the upgrade because a friend has told me he had a problem with it. Now, what is the consumer saying? The consumer is saying that he wants to have the features which are in the upgrade, in the latest upgrade, but he is leery of installing the upgrade. Leery means cautious. So he doesn't want to install the upgrade. Why? Because a friend has said that he had a problem with it. So here the consumer wants to have the features in the latest upgrade, but he doesn't want to install the upgrade because his friend faced a problem with it, and the consumer feels that he might also face a problem. Company representative says, we have distributed nearly 3,000 copies of the upgrade and we have received fewer than 100 calls saying that it has caused problems. So it is very unlikely that you will experience any problems with the upgrade. The representative says that they have distributed nearly 3,000 copies and they have received lesser than 100 calls. So it is very unlikely that the consumer will face any problem. So the representative argument is that they have distributed 3,000 copies and less than 100 calls were related to problems. So probability that the consumer will face any problem is also very low. So the consumer can install the upgrade. Now the question is, reasoning in the company representative's argument is most vulnerable to criticism because it fails to consider the possibility that here we have to find what is the flaw in the company representative argument. How can we refute the company representative argument? So representative argument is that lesser than 100 calls were related to the problems. So the consumer facing any problem, the probability is very low. How can we find a flaw in this? Maybe there are a lot of people who face the problems but didn't contact the company representative. That is why the number of calls have been less than 100. Or there might be a lot of people who face the problem, tried to contact company representative but couldn't reach the company representative. In that case also, the representative's data will say that less than 100 calls were received. Similarly, there can be other similar reasons. Now let's check which of the option says this. Option A, the company will issue another upgrade that correct the problems with the current upgrade. Here option A talks about correcting the problem in the upgrade which has been sold by the representative. This doesn't talk about countering the representative argument, so option A is negated and will be eliminated. Option B, some of the problems people have experienced with the upgrade have been quite serious. Option B says that the problems are serious. Does it make any comment on representative argument? No. So option B is also eliminated. Option C, a significant number of people have experienced problems with the upgrade but have not reported them. This option clearly says that a number of people face the problem but didn't report to the representative. That is why the number of calls are less than 100. This is what is actually answering the question. So option C can be our answer. We'll keep it on hold. Option D, the consumer will experience software problems if the upgrade is not installed. It says if the upgrade is not installed, then the consumer will face some problem. Does it answer or does it refute why the calls are less than 100? No. So option D is irrelevant and is eliminated. Option E, some of the reported problems were a result of users failing to follow instructions. It says that some of the problems happened just because the users didn't follow instruction. Will that refute the claim of less than 100 calls? No. So option E is also eliminated. We are left with option C, which is our answer. Coming to next question. Commissioner says, I have been incorrectly criticized for having made my decision on power plant issue prematurely. So Commissioner says that he has been incorrectly criticized for the decision related to power plant. I based my decision on the report prepared by the neighborhood association. So he's saying that he prepared the report on the basis of neighborhood association report. So his decision is depending on neighborhood association information. And although I haven't studied it thoroughly, I am sure that the information it contains is accurate. And the commissioner says that he did not read the complete report provided by the neighborhood association. Still, he believes that the information it contains is accurate. So he didn't study it thoroughly, so we should note it, and he feels it's accurate. Moreover, you may recall that when I received input from the neighborhood association on jail relocation, I agreed with its recommendation. Further, he says that he has taken similar decision in the past related to the jail relocation, and so he can agree on the current recommendation related to the power plant issue. So overall argument says that the commissioner believes that his decision has been incorrectly criticized. He made the decision on the basis of neighborhood association report, which he believes is accurate without even studying. Moreover, he has taken a decision on jail relocation on the basis of information provided by the neighborhood association, so he can take the information again and take the decision. Now, what is the question? The commissioner's argument is least vulnerable to which of the following criticism? So it says that the out of the given options, which of the option is least criticizing the argument? So we have to find the option which doesn't criticize or criticizes the least. Now, what is the criticism about? The criticism is about using the information provided by neighborhood association without studying it thoroughly. So now let's check which of the option doesn't say this. Option A, it takes for granted that association's information is not distorted by bias. Here it says that the commissioner is taking for granted that the information is not biased, which is criticism of the commissioner argument. So because the information is not distorted by bias, he's taking for granted, so it is eliminated. Option B, it draws a conclusion about the recommendations of the association from incomplete recollections. This option says that the association information can be from incomplete recollection, that is why the commission should not believe it. So this is again criticizing the commissioner argument. It says from incomplete recollection. Mind these words, so option B is eliminated. Option C, it takes for granted that association's report is the only direct evidence that needs to be considered. Option C says that the commissioner took for granted that the report is the only direct evidence. Mind, there was only direct evidence which is criticizing his argument to use this report. So option C is also eliminated. Option D, it hastily concludes that association report is accurate without having studied in detail. Again, it is criticizing Commissioner argument. Why? Because he believed that report is accurate without studying it. So option D is eliminated. Option E is our answer by default, but let's check it. It takes for granted that agreeing with association's past recommendation helps justify agreeing with its current recommendation. What does it say? That association past recommendation has been taken, so now they can take the current recommendation also. So this is not criticizing the commissioner argument that significantly option E is our answer. Coming to our fourth question, the common ancestors of Australian land and tree-dwelling kangaroos had prehensile tails and long opposable thumbs, attributes that are well adapted to tree dwelling but offer kangaroos few advantages on land. It says that the Australian land and tree dwelling kangaroos, their common ancestors had few different attributes, and these attributes are well adapted to tree dwelling. Mind the words, they are well adapted to tree dwelling kangaroos, but not to the kangaroos which are land dwelling. So, land dwelling kangaroos, they just offer few advantages, but not well adapted. So, well adapted to tree dwelling only. Next line, it is hardly surprising before therefore that land-dwelling kangaroos eventually lost these attributes. So later on, with the passage of time, the land-dwelling kangaroos lost these attributes. What is the rule of evolution? Evolution works on the principle that if some attributes are advantageous to one species, they will go to their offspring. And if the features are not advantageous, then they will not pass to the offspring and they will vanish, which happened in case of land dwelling kangaroos. So these attributes lost with the passage of time. What is puzzling in the fact that all the modern tree dwelling kangaroos now lack them as well. What is puzzling is that tree dwelling kangaroos also do not have these features. While we have studied earlier that the tree dwelling kangaroos, these features are well adapted to them, still the modern day tree dwelling kangaroos do not have these features. When can this happen? How can this happen? This can happen if we use the rule of evolution only in the situation where the tree dwelling kangaroos ancestors are land dwelling kangaroos, and those land dwelling kangaroos lost these features, and that is why the today modern tree dwelling kangaroos do not have these features. Now, the question is which of the following, if true, most helps explain the puzzling fact. So, the only way to solve this puzzling fact is that the modern day kangaroos are descended from the land dwelling kangaroos who lost these attributes with the passage of time. Now, let's check which of the options says is. Option A, modern tree dwelling kangaroos must back down tree trunk slowly. This option we can eliminate outrightly because we never talked about backing down the tree trunk slowly and carefully. So option A is eliminated because of this tree trunk slowly and carefully. We will eliminate this. Option B, modern tree dwelling kangaroos are smaller than most modern land dwelling kangaroos but larger than their common ancestors. This option talks about the modern tree dwelling kangaroos smaller than the land dwelling kangaroos. Again, we never talked about their size. So, because of this word smaller, we will eliminate option B. Option C, modern tree dwelling kangaroos tails cannot grasp branches. So, here this talks about the tails not grasping branches, but they are somewhat longer and more flexible than the modern land dwelling kangaroos. The tails being flexible or longer doesn't solve our effect. So, because of this line, we will eliminate the option. Option D, modern tree dwelling kangaroos are descended from the species of land dwelling kangaroos that had been land dwellers for many generations before modern tree dwelling kangaroos started to develop. So this option clearly says that today the modern day tree dwelling kangaroos are descended from the land dwelling species. That is why the modern tree dwelling kangaroos do not have these attributes. So option D can be an answer. We'll keep it on hold. Checking option E. Modern tree-dwelling kangaroos have smaller hind legs than the modern land-dwelling kangaroos. We never talked about the smaller legs, which is why we will eliminate this option. Option D is our answer. Coming to our last question, question number 5. Lack of exercise produces the same or similar bodily effects as aging. This says that because of lack of exercise, the body will have similar changes as happens in case of aging. In fact, the physical changes that accompany aging can often be slowed down by appropriate exercise. It further says that the physical changes can be slowed down with the exercise. No drug, however, holds any promise for slowing down the changes associated with aging. It says that there is no drug which promises or guarantees to slow down the change. So, overall, we studied that lack of exercise creates the same effect on body as aging, and physical changes can be slowed down by exercise, but there is no drug which promises this. Therefore, which of the following provides a logical completion to the passage above? So we have to find the line which can be the last line. Now let's check the options. Option A, taking drugs has the same effect as aging as does a lack of. We never talked about drugs having the same effect on aging. We talked about lack of exercise has the same effect as aging. So option A is eliminated. Option B, people who do not exercise are likely to need drugs to sustain themselves. It says people who do not exercise will need drugs. This is completely irrelevant. We never said that people who do not exercise need to take drugs. So option B is eliminated. Option C, appropriate exercise can prevent the physical changes associated with aging. It says that if exercise is done, then it will prevent the physical changes, which is what we discussed in the second line, that physical changes can be slowed down by exercise. So option C can be our answer. We'll keep it on hold. Option D, people who do not exercise when they are young will gain few benefits from beginning to exercise at a late. It says when they are young and when they are old, so the benefits will be more in the beginning. This is completely irrelevant. We never talked about when they were young or when they were old or at a late. So option D is eliminated. Option E, if the physical changes of aging are to be slowed, it is more practical to rely on exercise than on drugs. It says that if the physical changes have to be slowed, then it is better to rely on exercise than on drugs. Option E is completely sensible option because it talks about the physical changes to be slowed. It talks about how exercises are better than drugs to slow down the changes. So option E can be our answer. Here we have two option choices, option C and option E. And if we see, option E is better than option C because the last line here was talking about the drugs, and before that we talked about the exercise. So last line should logically explain the difference between exercise and drug, should make a comparison between both, which is what is being done in option E, rely on exercise than on drugs. So option E is more relevant answer than option C. So option C is eliminated. E is our answer. I hope all of you have understood the solutions well.